he's a young kid that's certainly, had a lot of success in 3 years. He's definitely not doing it by himself.
I haven't felt it in the room. Like, it's been good. Guys are working their asses off. Everybody's, players got a little bit of turbulence maybe outside the jet, but inside the jet, it's good.
So some very interesting reactions from the Winnipeg Jets. And if you're curious what they're talking about, it's their unsigned RFA, Patrik Laine, who making waves again with some of his comments that were spoken to Finnish media and then translated. If you haven't heard them yet, he said, when you're having contract negotiations, one thing always is who are you playing with? With the merits I have somewhere else, I'd have an opportunity to play with the best players. Everybody who understands hockey knows that. There are top lines, and then there is our line, but I play with the guys I'm told to play. We're now joined by our Jets insider, Sean Reynolds. And Sean, I'm not surprised whatsoever to see that this has perked some interest of Winnipeg Jets fans because there's some pretty interesting comments. How did you take them when you saw it?
Well, to be honest, I wasn't surprised when I saw them. Maybe you're a little bit surprised that he makes those comments because, in hockey culture, those are the kind of things that you usually keep inside the dressing room. But Patrik Laine's clearly been a frustrated player in the past at times. Last season was a perfect example where he went for very long stretches without scoring, and that absolutely drives this kid nuts. We know that he demands a lot from himself, and so you can imagine when you come into the league and have the kind of success that he had when he was very young and continued to have that success, and then that falls off a little bit. Those frustrations start to bubble up. He's still a young man. He's 21 years old, and if you're looking at the situation, you can see that the situation that he's in, the line that he's on, there's been questions about the chemistry in that line in the past. So it really shouldn't surprise anyone that he was thinking this, maybe just more along the lines that he's saying it.
It's not only Laine talking about particularly the line, but that he feels he should have a lot more usage, which then points to Paul Maurice. Do you feel that that's a fair concern of Laine's?
It's all in how you look at it. The Jets, they've got their top two players in Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler, and those two look like they come as a package deal. They were together all last year. I think they were pulled apart for one period in a blowout loss last season. So they're pretty much a package deal, and that means there's only going to be one other player who can play on the wing with that line, and Kyle Connor seems to get in there quite a bit. He outscored Patrik Laine last year. The argument, I guess, if you're Patrik Laine, is how many goals would he have scored if he was in the position that Kyle Connor was in last year? But the fact of the matter is the Jets do get, a scoring player in that slot without putting Patrik Laine in there. And I'll tell you, from watching Patrik Laine, his shot is so dangerous and he can score from places that, typical hockey players just can't, that it changes the way that teams have to play defense against him. So I understand the merit of putting him on a different line, getting him away from those other players because he's so dangerous and teams have to play him differently. He just by the very nature of who he is as a player, he creates space for the players around him. So I can understand, from the team's point of view, putting him in a different spot. But I can also understand from his point of view, especially as a young player, you're looking and you're producing and you're feeling like, there would have been stretches last season where Patrik Laine needed help and he would have liked to have been, playing with Blake Wheeler or Mark Scheifele or the both of them to try and pull him out of those slumps. And I could understand as a young player being frustrated and feeling that you'd given a lot to the team over the last couple of years and that maybe you would have liked more help in the down times, which were often last season.
Sean, if we look then at these comments and we pair it with some of the comments Laine made to Sportsnet's Chris Johnston as well, where does this leave him in Winnipeg in terms of their contract negotiation and where they're at?
Well, it's a tricky one because I think, we've been hearing, I talked to Patrik Laine at the end of the season last season. He had felt that he'd done enough in his first 3 years to earn himself a long-term contract at the number he wanted. As the summer went on, Sportsnet's Elliot Friedman had talked about how they're leaning more towards, a bridge deal, or that the two teams are looking at that. The issue with a bridge deal, as I see it, is that, when a player is betting on themselves with a short-term contract or a bridge contract, they're also betting on their situation. And the fact of the matter is the Jets have tried to change Patrik Laine's situation. They brought in Kevin Hayes last year to do it. They brought in Paul Stastny the year before to do it, but we're right back into this scenario where he's going back onto a line with Brian Little. And so he's going to have to bet on that situation. And if he's frustrated in that situation, I could see how that would be a holdup in contract negotiations. Do I think that this is a reason to think that this relationship is coming to an end? I don't think that at all. I think Patrik Laine takes a look at the possibilities that exist on this team as a goal scorer the way he is, the amount of talent he's surrounded by and how that can elevate his game. I think he's probably just wanting a different combination than what he's seen in the past. But this is a good situation for him here if he wants to be on a winning team, on a team that is able to challenge year after year, and definitely on a good team surrounded by players who can bring out the best in him. So I don't see this as, the first step or the second step or the third step of things unraveling between Patrik Laine and the Jets. I just see it, as a player who has always been very honest with us, continuing to be honest, and sometimes saying things that maybe other players wouldn't say, but that's Patrik Laine. He just says those things.
Yeah, I find it kind of refreshing, to be honest, Sean. We always ask that of the players, right? I'm sure both sides are hoping to get this figured out soon with training camp underway in the regular season. Not too far off. Thanks so much for chatting, Sean.
Anytime.